Welcome to Inside Badger Nation on Madison CW. Now your hosts, Ben Wargel and Phil Dawson.
Welcome into Inside Badger Nation, along with Ben Wargel from Badger Nation, the magazine, and BadgerNation.com. Phil Dawson with you from the Big Ten 70. We are at Camp Randall Stadium for a special National Signing Day edition of Inside Badger Nation. Coming up on the program, we will have 3 full segments with Wisconsin head coach Gary Anderson breaking down the ins and outs of this 2014 signing class. And Ben, we've been filling the people in about it all year long, and this is the day it all culminates to what happens on National Signing Day. And you know, first and foremost, what didn't happen really for the Badgers, coming down to the 11th hour on a couple of recruits. Why don't you take us through what led up to finally getting those faxes in and who's going to be Badgers this year?
Well, this was kind of a big 72 hours leading up to National Signing Day for Wisconsin. And as we sit on National Signing Day, this is a top 30 class, which is remarkable for Gary Anderson in his first full year as the head coach of Wisconsin, first full recruiting cycle, I should say. And this is a stellar class, one of the best Wisconsin's had since we started ranking classes in 2002. And it could have been a lot better. At one point, this class was in the mid-teens, but unfortunately, kind of some dominoes kind of fell its way. It started on Monday, too. Craig Evans, that came out from Sun Prairie, 4-star kid, just academically just wasn't going to be able to qualify at Wisconsin. So Wisconsin and him kind of parted ways. He's going to try to go to Michigan State. Still has a lot of work to do in the classroom there. I mean, that kind of socked the ranking a little bit. Caleb McGarry, a 4-star offensive tackle we've talked about on the show before, decided to go to Washington over Wisconsin. He said Wisconsin was just too far. If Wisconsin was where Montana was, he would have committed to Wisconsin. So just kind of a tough blow there. But on Monday night, Wisconsin got a 3-star wide receiver commit from George Rushing, a former Louisville commit, a guy who a lot of speed, a lot of heart, a lot of toughness. He can go over the middle and make plays. He'll be able to come in right away and compete at that wide receiver position. But on National Signing Day, kind of a big day for Wisconsin. They get Dakota Dixon, a 3-star kid out of Florida who Wisconsin had been monitoring for quite some time, offered him over the summer. He picked Wisconsin over Michigan State and West Virginia. Really solid, kind of fortifies that defensive backfield for the Badgers. Unfortunately, they missed on Chris Lemons, a 4-star cornerback out of Plantation High School, former teammate of Soldier and Shelton. He decided to go to South Carolina. So the Gamecocks beat the Badgers again for the second time in a little over a month, but still a lot of athletes in this class. They went a lot of different places, from Hawaii to Georgia to Tennessee, Florida, Maryland, Utah. They went everywhere in this class, and a lot of really good players who we're going to talk about shortly with the head man himself.
That's right. Coach Gary Anderson going to join us in a little bit. But Ben, give me your top on the offensive side of the football and the top on the defensive side of the football that may make some immediate impacts.
Really like Jaden Galt, 4-star offensive lineman. Really like DJ Gillens, 3-star quarterback. Both guys are enrolled early at Wisconsin. Really like Crenwick Sanders, 3-star wide receiver from Georgia. He's a big playmaker, and Wisconsin needs big playmakers. Defensive side of the ball, really like some of the athletes they got in the backfield. Dakota Dixon, I mentioned. Derek Tyndall, the only cornerback in this class, true cornerback in this class, and especially in the defensive line, too. Connor Sheehy, Billy Hirschfeld. I mean, you asked for just one, but there's a ton of guys in this class who can make an immediate impact. Why? Because Wisconsin graduates their entire front 7. They need some guys to step in and fill early.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that with the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers. Coming up next right here on Inside Badger Nation, Gary Anderson set to join us, so don't go anywhere on this special National Signing Day edition of IBN. Welcome back to Inside Badger Nation, a special Signing Day edition, and pleased to be joined by the head coach of the Wisconsin football team, Gary Anderson. Happy to have you again, Coach. Obviously a huge day, and been talking about it already, but let's start a little bit with what we've seen so far come in on the offense, and I think a lot of our viewers have been excited about quarterback DJ Gillens, just what exactly kind of player he can be and translate to, and a dual threat guy that I'm sure, even going back to your Utah State days, a guy like Chucky Keaton, and can get people pretty excited.
Yeah, DJ is, first of all, he's here early, which is a great opportunity for him, and he's in a highly competitive position battle, and that's a good thing. And Joel has the upper hand. He started the games. He's done what he's done, and Kurt was the backup last year. So, but his mindset is to come in and play. And when you recruit all these kids, I would expect all 30 of these new young men in our program to come in and say, my goal is to start. Just like when we recruit a kid, I want them to have aspirations of someday playing in the NFL, being a great person as they go through. So DJ's got that mindset. He's handled himself very well. Quick, jump on a plane, boom, Christmas is over and away I go, basically. And so he, so far so good. He looks good in the workouts. He's there. He's very sharp. He's consistent in his daily work habits as far as study hall, school, weight room, individual meetings. As a position group, he does a great job. So excited to see how he progresses. Tremendous young man and a very talented athlete.
From an offensive perspective, you really want to kind of rebuild the numbers on the offensive line. You did that with a number of good kids, a number of good quality in-state kids. Can you just talk about, Jay and Galt, Michael Dieter are already on campus. Just talk about those guys, and especially George Panos, who obviously a lot of people know because of his dad.
Yeah, Jaden and Michael being here again, huge opportunity for them to get into spring ball, get through a conditioning situation from January and now spring ball, which starts early, March 7th. We roll pretty quick here into spring ball. But I think those two have come in, again, adjusted well, dealt with the situations. Michael might walk in and be the starter at the center position in the first day of spring ball with the injuries to Dallas and to Dan. So opportunity knocks, and what a better opportunity than that to come in and play early, but he's working hard down there. And, George, the thing about George is his ability to lead in high school, his ability to lead as we went through this recruiting process, his ability to bring the kids of Wisconsin together and communicate between George and Billy and Connor and all those kids going back and forth. But he's got that natural ability to lead, and he plays with he's a little bit of a nasty guy in the football field, which you always want, those finishers, right? We call it finishing. That's the nice term for it, as those offensive linemen. He's a finisher.
Well, obviously, you're talking about the son of a Joe Panos. What you just described was basically Joe. Him and Bo Benchwall, kind of legacy players, if you will, that they have ties back into the university. How important is that, and how does that fit into the recruiting process with them?
Well, I think it's a big part of it. It's something special to play where your dad played, and it's something special as a dad to have your kid go play where you played. So those are traditions. Wisconsin is built on many, many traditions, and an in-state player is a big part of that tradition, whether you came here as a scholarship player or as a walk-on player. That was me. I was that guy at the University of Utah back in the day, and a long time ago now. But, it was very prideful for me to say that I played there, and that's what these kids from Wisconsin get to do, and it's been a dream of theirs to walk out on their field, and I'll walk out on our field and play, and now they're part of that. And for Dad to be able to walk in the stands, Mom and Grandma and Grandpa to walk in is special.
Now, a couple of these kids that will be walking out here, maybe hitting Madison for the first time, and certainly players that I think you may need to help from the get-go, this wide receiving group. As a whole, what were you looking for? What were you trying to address and bringing in? I think we got 4 wide receivers in.
Yeah. First of all, the ability to change the game and allow ourselves to be a threat in the throw game in all situations, in all formations, all type of situations throughout the game, to be able to stretch the field in all 3 zones, the deep, the middle, the short zones, and also be able to play receivers on both sides of the field. You saw us get ganged up on all year last year, and Jared ended up getting bracketed, and we had some receivers make some plays, but that's what we were looking for. So speed, athleticism, the ability to catch contested balls is very, very important, and then the ability to walk in and have the care factor and the want to be able to, I can come in and play as a freshman, I can compete. There is no guarantees. There's some good receivers here that want those spots, and they're going to fight like crazy to keep their spots. So again, highly competitive young men that love the game of football, but you need game changers. If you're going to be a great team, you got to have game changers. And you look at the Super Bowl, it was no different. There was great players making great plays at special moments, and it changed the game, and it became very lopsided. But you've got to have game changers, whether that means catch a hitch and go 80, whether that means catch that big fade ball when it's a contested ball and there's 2 sets of hands on it, but we come down with it and win the football game. Those are the plays you got to make, those 10 special plays to win championships.
Gary, I think you hit 11 different states with this recruiting class, so you went coast to coast, even in Hawaii a little bit, but I think probably you would agree probably the biggest state you hit was Georgia. A lot of talent in the South, and you got 2 really good kids in wide receiver Crenwick Sanders and nose tackle Jeremy Patterson. Just talk about what you expect from both those guys going forward. Those were 2 really big gets for you.
It was, and then to be able to walk into Jessup, Georgia, and SEC country, as many want to call it, and compete in those situations was great. Now, you're talking about an unbelievable setting. The coaches there were so just informative for us and gave us the opportunity to really move forward in the recruiting process. And Crenwick is very, very competitive. Football means a lot to him. Being a good person means a lot to him. Being involved in the community there in Jessup is important for him. And I would say all those things I just said is exactly the same way for Jeremy. You know, I mean, we walked in and Jeremy, I watched him back off the squat rack with the hang clean bar at his knees with 405 pounds on it, and I thought he was moving the weight and just getting it out of the way, and you know, he picks it up and boom, he hang cleans it. I mean, that's a powerful young man walking in as a freshman. So, but better than that, more importantly than that, they're tremendous kids, great athletic ability, and they held true to Wisconsin. They want to be here for the right reasons because they had many offers, and it didn't stop. They just kept on coming, and you know, those planes were rolling in and out of Jessup, Georgia. And there's not a lot of planes that come through Jessup, Georgia, but they were rolling in and out there with a lot of different, schools, and they hung tough. It's important for them to be here, and their families are very supportive of them. So those are two great young men.
We will take a look at the defensive side of the ball with head coach Gary Anderson when we return here on Inside Badger Nation. Welcome back to Inside Badger Nation. Along with Ben Wargel, I'm Phil Dawson, and we're happy to be joined by Wisconsin head football coach Gary Anderson. Coach Anderson, we touched a little bit on the offensive side of the football, this 2014 National Signing Day. How about the defensive side? I want to start in-state with a couple of two big kids, big athletic kids, talking about Connor Sheehy and Billy Hirschfeld. These two guys, and also, you know, Connor was a guy who was ready to be a Badger, and Billy was a guy who had to, you know, make a decision. So take us through the process of getting those two kids who are Wisconsinites.
Yeah, well, you know, Connor was pretty much in it from the very beginning and very excited to be here, and it was his dream, and it's done nothing but grow. But you still have to build those relationships of trust within the coaching staff, and it went very well with his family. I think he felt very comfortable with us early on, and away we went. Now he's going to be a very good player. He's very versatile. Is he going to be? He can move in and play inside. He can move out and play defensive end. There's no doubt in my mind in the odd front he can play both of those, and he's going to be able to play both of those throughout his career because he does have the athleticism and the snap and the quickness to be able to do his job. You know, Billy, as we went through the process, Billy was he's a smart young man, and his parents helped him make the decision, but he really wanted to make sure that he felt comfortable with the style of the defense. He knew about the university. He knew he was going to get a world-class education if he came here. He knew about the tremendous facilities, but he had to know about us a little bit more. And you know, that's a good thing. I have no problem with that. And so as we went through those, junior days a year ago and went through the camp and everything that was there, and I think Billy had a little bit of he really wants to play defense. And I think he had a little bit in his mind was saying, are these guys really going to play me at defense, or I'm going to be a tackle or a tight end or whatever it was? And he is a defensive end. And as soon as he felt comfortable with that, of us committing that I believe he's a defensive end, Coach Chad believes he's a defensive end, Coach Aranda believes he's a defensive end, at that point it went very quickly and he committed.
Gary, it seems like the last 2 months you guys put a real focus on recruiting defensive backs and cornerbacks. I mean, you landed a number of kids late, Derek Tyndall, Serge Trezzi. Just talk about how the focus maybe shifted for you guys. You talked about in bowl prep too, guys maybe showed some stuff that you can move some scholarships around. When did the secondary become a huge impact for you? Was it from the start? And kind of talk about some of those kids you landed.
Well, again, I think you look at the numbers and you look at the kids and the athleticism and what you want to be able to do on defense. If you take a step back, and I love the Super Bowl watching that defense play for Seattle because it's man coverage and pass rushes at its best, and you got to stop the run first. But you look what they did, and they took Hall of Fame, one of the greatest quarterbacks that's ever played the game, out of it. And if you can run in the back end and get involved in man coverage, and you have smart kids that can move and spin back and forth, it causes some real issues. The defensive pass rush, obviously we want that too. So the numbers in the back end just had to grow. Why? Again, competition. Create competition. I want Sojourn Shelton to not feel comfortable. And I love him, and I think it's going to be very hard for anybody to come in and take his job, absolutely. But Sojourn knows that we're going to recruit, and we're going to recruit like crazy to bring young men in here that can compete. A year ago, that was Sojourn, right, saying, okay, I'm going to come in and play and compete. So he understands it, he knows it. I want Darius to be a little bit on edge, say, man, I got to work like crazy to achieve my goals and be all Big Ten, which is one of his goals, obviously. But also, I got to make sure that I keep myself up where I need to be to continue to get better. So creating competition is important, and then just by the numbers, getting some athletes back there. We want to be able to put four corners on the field at times and be able to play ball, and we couldn't do that last year. You look at us, we brought Dez. In the bowl game, Dez was the third corner, and we want to be able to go past that in the future if we can.
You flipped a number of kids in this class, upwards I think 8 or so kids. Talk about just your staff's mentality that the kid, is fair game for anybody until they sign. I mean, a number of your best kids, Darian Watkins, Crenwick Sanders, were all committed to different schools, and now they're going to be playing for you.
Well, I think that's a credit to the assistant coaches, when they walk into the homes. And you go through the recruiting process, and it's a lot of the same as. There's very nice stuff. Well, I think we have the best of the best, and obviously I'm biased when I talk about that. But there's a lot of nice places, and recruiting trips are fun, and it's presented the right way. But in the end, recruiting comes down to a relationship business. And I get to go into each home for 2 hours. That's all I get. I get them on the phone, I talk to them, communicate about them. That's important for me, but I think our coaches walked in there, they presented our plan. We're consistent with our plan. We don't go in there and change because one school says this, one school says that. We're not going to flop on the positions we're recruiting you on. We're going to put you in a spot to be successful, and that matters. And our kids in the program do an unbelievable job when the young men get on campus of communicating with us and letting us know, is that kid that came on this visit a good fit? And they also speak the truth of what we are. And if they don't speak, but we're going to take care of them. We put kids first. I'm going to hire assistant coaches that want to take care of young men and put them in a position to be successful. We want to change young men into men. That means a lot to me, okay? Football will take care of itself. I believe that. If we always go down that road, I think that's what allows the kids to say, you know what, these guys are, as kids say in today's world, real. I think that's who we are.
With plenty of swagger, too. Don't forget about that. The back end as well, talking about safeties. I know your safety coach, Bill Bush, likes guys who have the long levers, and you have a couple of those guys in Austin Hudson. Even Serge and Luburn Figaro, these are guys who may be able to play sooner than later, especially with the move of Tanner McAvoy. At least he's going to compete at quarterback, right, in the spring?
Exactly. If you just take Serge for a minute, we haven't talked a bunch about Serge, but Serge is a young man that is the ability for him to have an opportunity to be at Wisconsin is something that's very special to him. And when you walk into his home and spend time in his home, you see how important it is to his family. And he will give you everything he's got. And I feel the same way about Luburn. You walk into Luburn's school and you communicate. He has so many people around him. He's infectious in the way he carries himself. And so it's going to be a good crew. And that's why I say, Serge is another one. He runs well enough to potentially play corner, but it's going to be nice to have those safeties with some length, guys that can run. And Derek's the same way. He's a big, tall corner, but boy, he can get out and run. And with the other place, you'll see that help you is in special teams. Now, all of a sudden, your ability to just miss a punt by 2 or 3 inches, well, he's 6 inches longer, so he should have his hand on that ball and make big plays for us. So, long athletic kids that can run, but they got to love football and be tough-minded, and I think all these kids do.
I'd like to point out, too, speaking of special teams, I have 8 players from this class who have returned kicks for touchdowns, so special teams going right along with.
Yep, that's something I never did in my career, so I know that. But yeah, it's an amazing stat, and 10,000 yards for the 3 backs that we've got. Those 8 kids return kicks for touchdowns, and it does show the athleticism and what they've done to help their football team, and hopefully that continues.
And that game-breaking ability. We'll wrap it up with Coach Anderson when we return next here on IBN. We invite you to check us out on YouTube. Just check out Inside Badger Nation. Put it inside your search bar, and you can find all of our previous episodes. Also, invite you to follow us on Twitter @InBadgerNation to keep up with the Wisconsin recruiting program and what we have for you coming up on these shows. And, of course, we take your emails, InsideBadgerNation@gmail.com. And that's brought to us by 608 Restaurant and Bar. It's 212 State Street, where 608 is more than just an area code. And our email this week, perfect timing for Nathan via Twitter. What do the Wisconsin Badgers need to do better this year to compete for the Big Ten title? So that's from Nathan via Twitter. And you know what? Ben and I are going to back off a little bit on this one because we have Badger head coach Gary Anderson who can maybe help answer that question. So, you were in the mix for a bit there last year, obviously. But so answering Nathan's question here, where do you think it starts? Probably with some of the returning players.
Well, I think the biggest thing, Nathan, is the ability to get in those moments and make special plays. And good teams are going to be good teams, great teams are going to be great teams, but I really believe there's about a 10-play swing in there that takes you to greatness, and you've got to be able to find a way to make them. We talked about that last year. If you break down just the last game, the bowl game at South Carolina, there were some special plays made by South Carolina players in special moments, and everybody, oh man, they caught every ball and they're lucky, they're this and that. I don't agree with that. They're great players making great plays in certain situations. So that's one big thing. I think the development of our depth is important. We need to continue to make sure as we move forward we challenge ourselves as a football team, as coaches, to have the quality depth. So when you do go through those times where you have an injury, the next person up can come in and at least give you an opportunity to still win that football game. And you go through the recruiting cycle, you spend so much time recruiting, but right now the team is the core of the kids that are in the program. Right. And I really like what they've done in the offseason to this point. Now, I've only been with them for 2 days, but the reports that I get from the strength coaches is they're coming together, they're moving in the right direction, they're working hard. It seems to mean a lot to them. Now, the key to that is where's the leadership going to come from? A strong senior class has departed, which we know. So the leaders got to step up and we got to lead. And it's easy to start anything. We all start anything. Lots of people start diets, we start new jobs, everything, all the stuff that comes with it. And a couple, 3 months later, it's gone. So it's easy to start to be a leader, but where are those leaders going to be when we start spring ball, when we get done with spring ball? That's going to be a true identity of who we are in the 2014 season.
Gary, when you first came here, in your press conference, you talked about you want Wisconsin to be a national brand, recruit nationally. You felt you can go anywhere and recruit against anybody, and you recruited a number of really high-ranking kids, and you were in it to the very end. And maybe you didn't land as many as you were hoping for, but just talk about just what you saw out of that going into homes in California and Virginia and Florida, and talking to some of these high-ranking kids who had offers from everybody in the country, and they still have you in their Final 3, Final 4, or Final whatever.
Yep, and we won some of those, we lost some of those obviously, but that's where we want to go. Now, as long as we identify them as the same star ranking or what have you that the other people do, and we are willing to obviously get into those situations, and you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. That's part of the deal. As long as you gave it your best shot at the end, and we gave it our all to show them who we are, what our program is, and quite frankly, it's not a great fit for everybody. We want to make sure they understand our vision, our belief, the care factor that we have, and then we're going to share our story with them. And again, I say it again, we're not going to sell them Wisconsin football, Wisconsin academics, Wisconsin social world. We're just going to show it to them because it is a great place. Now, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. And that's what happens some of the time. Some of the times you lose because the kid chooses another school. But we're going to get into those fights. We expect ourselves to recruit at the highest level. We expect ourselves to play and compete at the highest level.
All right, there he is, Badger head coach Gary Anderson. Coach, really appreciate you taking time to join us here. That's Ben. I'm Phil. This has been Inside Badger Nation. We'll see you next week.